Hey, hey, beat baseball world. Welcome back to another edition of the Beepball Blue Show. NealDawg, Bam Bam here to recap all of the beepball action, both from the MindsEye Gateway Beepball Regional and the first leg of the Beast of the East. But first, NealDawg, I need to ask you. I need to say hello because I know you're a little touchy.
Hello.
Hi,
hello.
Hi,
Greetings. How are you?
Big nice howdy, hi to you.
Yeah, hey, howdy, hi. It's nice to be with you again.
We, and you always.
Shall overcome. Oh, sorry.
We are doing the show a day later than normal. Because Aunt Cindy's in town here in California, and you're doing some family time for those of you that have been with us at Beepball Blues Show's over 3 years old now. But early on, one of the most common way we used to sign off at the end, the last words were always "Good night, Aunt Cindy."
So she still was a fan, no. Cut her out once you stop being a.
You got that right.
I
draw a hard line. I don't care how old you are. But how is Aunt Cindy? How was the time with Aunt Cindy?
Oh, it was good, man. Actually, we were down there both days, Saturday and Sunday. So yesterday was a bigger thing. It was Joel's birthday on Friday, so it was a big kind of party thing. But we went and hung out with, on a smaller level on Saturday. So we had a good time. A lot of a lot of chance to talk all this stuff. So she's still kicking, man. What can she complain about, man? Not everybody can say that, so.
She and for those that don't know, Aunt Cindy is Seth's mom's sister, and they come from good roots. Your grandparents lived a good long time.
Mm-hmm.
Put up a good fight. So
but I got that in me too, NealDawg.
I don't know, man. I didn't want to go there, but most people know my dad just passed a few months ago, and he was he would have been 96 on what's today, Sunday? On Tuesday would have been his 96th birthday. But man, dude, his last 5 years were so rough. He had a good brain and a good heart, but his hips, he had a hernia they couldn't fix. That was causing him discomfort. You know what I mean? It's like his eyesight was gone. He had macular degeneration or whatever. He's nearly blind. He was nearly deaf a long time ago. So it's like, man, I was watching that end ride. I was praying. I don't want to make this sound wrong. I never prayed for him to pass. I'm gonna be clear on that.
But I remember you on my
your parents screwed that to me?
Yeah,
yes, I know. I think about that with all my bad grammar. I know your mom's just shaking her head.
Choose your words.
But I never prayed for his passing, but when people would ask what I wanted for my dad at this point, comfort was the only word that ever came to mind for the last 5 years. So, man, I might be okay. I mean, I don't want to go now, but I might be okay with an earlier passing is all I was saying. I don't know what that age is, though. I don't know what that age is. Anyway, enough about us. Let's bring in our guest, Mr. Jason Frazier, the CEO and president of MindsEye Radio. How are you, Jason?
Not doing too bad. In the car on the way to Mississippi first stop, then Gulf Shores, Alabama the next. Little vacation. My daughter has, I won't say vacation, my daughter has dance competition, so
wow, cool.
To watching about 800 dances this week, so
that's way cool.
Change of pace.
Since Aaron is from that part of the region, have you guys spent time at the Gulf Shores before?
Oh yeah, we went on vacation there. Probably there was, I think, late 2020 or something like that, right? I know it was around still COVID times were fresh. I know a lot of policies were in place. It was around that time, probably 2 or 3 years ago.
I was telling Erin earlier that I know somebody out that way, and her family spent a lot of time like at the Gulf Shores, and she told me about the like trampoline that's out in the ocean. You could go. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you ever
I
seen that?
mean, I've never seen it, but I'm definitely not going to go do it. I'm not that adventurous.
I believe
You
I
know,
believe you take like a paddle boat or something out to it, and there's netting around it. Like I thought people were just jumping from the trampoline straight into like shark infested water, but but there's netting and stuff around it. Jason said,
I'll
"I
take
still ain't going."
I'll take your word for it, but I'm still not going to make it out to that part.
but-
I'll let you know if someone else does, but it won't be me.
he said, I'll stop. I was gonna make a joke. I was gonna make a joke.
We're live now.
Yes, yes.
He's about to get me in trouble in the car, probably.
Yeah.
I was on vacation, fellas. How'd you get me fired on vacation?
So
let's get out of the shark infested waters and talk a little more safe ground, beat baseball. Jason, man, I mentioned already you're the CEO and president of MindsEye, and MindsEye not only is the host or the sponsoring agency that is part of hosting the World Series in 2024 and 2025 in St. Charles, Missouri. But you guys held an 8-team regional tournament this weekend to kind of get a kickstart and learn a little bit about running a tournament before next year. So before we get into all the results, how do you feel that part of it went for MindsEye overall?
I think it went pretty well. The thing that, of course, we couldn't control was Saturday. We got the weather coming in, and I think we were able to pivot pretty good to make things still run and get the games in and get the good results in for Sunday morning. But as far as it's a lot of work, so I told JT Herzog, and I also told Booker, they were both there too. I said, I have a lot more respect for you guys now. Running the tournament and getting things organized. And like I said, I was in the stream. I was running around in 8 different directions, but it was all for a good part. As I, mentioned, I think I made a post yesterday and I talked about, I got introduced to beat baseball from a recreational standpoint from MindsEye because we used to host a annual fundraising tournament every year.
Yeah.
And we used to host that, just to kind of build awareness and give some opportunities out and give people who were blind, but also sighted people a chance to know the game. And that was how I knew the game. And then, 4 years ago, we started doing Gateway Archers in about into 2019 and 2020. I gained a whole new appreciation for the sport and the athletes and seeing it. So it became something I enjoyed doing every year in that recreational mindset to now, absolutely loving the game and watching the game and paying attention to that more than when I was at ESPN. I used to cover combat sports. MMA, I probably watch more beepball games than I watch any combat sports or wrestling or anything like that now. I said I have a deep appreciation. So I definitely wanted to put on a great tournament for the athletes and players this weekend, but also, that kind of moving forward to the World Series and making sure we're doing the best job for that too.
I'm giving you a second, Seth. Thought you might want to jump in since I've been hogging time.
No, it's fine. Again, I was all off. I tried to track a couple games or whatever. It was too much of a buffet for me to actually handle. But every time I'd click onto those St. Louis games, it seemed like you guys were having rain problems. so how much did the rain impact? I heard like the sirens drawing, and it seemed like they were in a pouring rainstorm. But what did you guys do to pivot around all that? Because that is always the biggest hurdle in any World Series, the uncontrollable weather and the timing and all that.
Yeah, I think the biggest hurdle, like Friday night, we knew Friday was going to be. We had that Sirens versus Alliance exhibition game. We knew, okay, if we can get through this, and then right before the game started, lightning struck like 10 miles north of the complex. So we had a minor delay that one, about a 30-minute one, and we were able to get that game off in pretty much end on time. And then Saturday, the window said 4:30. But I looked at like 2:45 and I could see the clouds behind one of the fields. I'm like, that doesn't look like 4:30, it looks more like 3:15 maybe. So I knew we were in trouble then. And then we were like, it was gonna pass over, which it did, but it didn't pass over enough. We decided to delay the games, and we actually shortened the Sunday morning games to 4 innings and 3 strikes. So just to get those games in, because a lot of them had just barely started. And they were an inning in.
Yeah,
so
1, 2 at the
most. Right.
Yeah. So we just finished that inning with 4 strikes, and then the next inning we went to the 3-strike rule on Sunday morning, and then of course we played the placement games and championship game all with 3 strikes and 1 ball going forward, just to make sure we got it in and make sure everybody was out on the road in the time they needed to be. So you had teams traveling from Houston to Austin, so you don't want anybody to miss flights or be later than we get in the road later than they had originally planned, too much later at least.
It's funny that you mentioned like people missing flights and stuff, because not only were teams pressured for that, because I was bouncing around to different streams trying to keep up with scores and stuff, and like the common thing, like as the games are really close, getting in late innings, and they're not talking about the games, they're talking about having to check out of the hotel by noon.
Yeah, we gotta go.
And Austin and the Thunder
Indy,
went into extra innings. Man. They're already pressed about time in the 5th inning, and they go to extra innings, and they thought they were just moments away from playing like an 8th inning. So,
and in that game, you have 2 of the most competitive coaches, so they're not going to be like, man, we got to leave for time. Jono and Darnell are probably going to sacrifice anything there, so they probably rather get their steps thrown out of the hotel than lose a game. So I know that's probably.
I would normally agree with you 1,000,000%. There was nobody more concerned about checking out of the hotel than John Fleming. John was, actually, once they got down to, he was actually doing the play-by-play when they won a big game over the Thunder with Darius Sterling coming through with a walk-off, and he all the way, the whole time Darius was running to base, boy, John Fleming was about to jump out of his skin. He was so excited. So I know he's there for his team, but there was nobody that was worried more about checking out of the hotel than John O. Fleming. I can tell you that. Before we
go back and catch that game, because I know we were I was on DB with the stream for the championship game, but I gotta go back and catch that and watch that one, and see how Jono's reacting through that game. When the ride or die with not only is the score, but also the hotel checkout
time. You and DB make a good team doing the streams. Somebody else gonna mention the DB. Though, I was noticing this when he and Rosina were doing games in Indy, because they're going to be the game of the day team, doing the streams for the MBBA. I believe DB likes to stand up so he could hear the game better while the stream, is going on, and I understand that. But he's not always, his audio is not always that good. Like his audio was about half as loud as yours in a lot of cases. Not always, but in a lot of cases, he's just not close enough to the mic. So, a little feedback.
I'm a loud person by nature sometimes too, Neil. So that probably didn't help him out too much.
And I'm not. It's not critical.
Like I'm nothing. She doesn't think that.
And Neil's a perfectionist now. He likes his audio perfect, bro. But
I'm trying to offer
helpful criticism.
Yeah, helpful criticism. Yeah. It wasn't a matter of that. It was actually like sometimes the sideline stuff was drowning DB out because he was far enough away from the mic. So that's not me being a perfectionist. They're going to be the game of the game of the day streams. We need good audio. So that's all.
I was thinking about this as I was trying to watch some of the different games and stuff. It would be worth it. I think, for the NBBA to, or whatever, I think the NBBA, because they're the largest entity, to actually pay somebody to do every game, right? Just you could I think of filming, right? So at soccer, some of the bigger soccer clubs here, they pay people to come film their games and stuff like that, just so that the feed is always good, right? Because you're trying to bring in an audience, and it's very small anyway on Beepball or on the the stream anyway, but there's times that the audio doesn't do much for if you're a blind player or a blind person listening to it and stuff. And I mean, it's only you come up with like $100 to pay somebody in the regional area to come out. Hey, you sit here for 2 hours and do play-by-play. We'll give you $100, man. It seems like it would be it would be a worthwhile investment to bring in as many listeners as you possibly can and give them a solid product to listen to.
I agree with that, because I'm just from the standpoint of, we talked about hosting the regional this week to get people kind of ready for the World Series, a litmus test. But what it also did too, was attract a lot of new fans, because a lot of the volunteers that were out there that day were seeing the game for the first time.
Is that me or him?
No, it's totally him. I didn't know. I was hoping he'd pop back sooner. So
it is funny.
But some people came up to me like, "Can I volunteer to help out the archers? Can I volunteer the game?" So yeah.
Right.
Just to give you a heads up, we caught a lot of that.
Growing the game.
He's not here enough.
No.
You've been buffering quite a bit. We did catch a lot of that, but just to give you a heads up, and to again let the audience know, Jason and his family are on the road traveling, so his audio is breaking up a little bit here and there.
But I do think, hold on, I did pick up kind of that he thought it was a good idea,
He did say that, right? I just wanted, honestly, the improvements that could be made to streaming and how is a whole show by itself. So let's get to the results.
I know.
Am I a little bit, I turn up my video to try to get a little bit better so it won't be buffering as much.
Right.
All right.
No problem.
Is that better now or still the same?
Oh, there you go.
Actually, no, you sound perfectly clear right there.
Okay.
Before we'll run down all the scores of all the action from this weekend, but let's go back to Friday night and give a shout out to the Sirens and to MindsEye for finding a way to get them a game. The Sirens got, even though they're from that St. Louis, Missouri area, they got going too late to take a shot at being in this tournament that was played there. So MindsEye set up an exhibition game using players from all of the 8 teams that were involved in the Gateway Beepball Regional. And they got to have an exhibition game on Friday night. As you pointed out, like the weather, they had lightning right out of the gate, so part of it got held up. The Sirens, unfortunately, didn't have their whole roster there with them. And then early on, I've never gotten any further word, but Whitney Marin had to come out of the game. I believe she got banged up a little bit. I don't know how serious it is, but they weren't at full strength, and they're a new team, lacking a lot of experience. So they had a rough outing. I think the final was 8-1 or 9-1. What, am I correct, Jason? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was 9-1. 9-1 in that game. Whitney went out. I think she had a little asthma problem. I think that breathing. She had the wind knocked. She had the wind knocked out her because she fell right on the ball.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's why she went out. But she actually returned to the game a little bit later on too.
Okay. We lost Jason. So they, I guess what I was just saying about their experience. I don't know if you're back, Jason, but since you were cutting out, I jumped in. Their team in general, Seth, they're really up against it. Not just because they're a new team, but they're a new team with literally no experience. Like Kim Blumenthal has the majority of their experience, and she's planning on taking a back seat. So these young players that they want to build around will get the experience. But there's not a single team out there that could come to our World Series with like 3 teenagers in the starting lineup that have no experience, plus a couple more adults in the lineup that have, older adults that have 0 experience. That's the part that's really going to hurt them. Mari Blumenthal is a full-time pitcher for the first time in her career, and she's pitching to a team with no experience for the most part. So they're really going to be up against it. But man, I love their like spirit, and they also seem to have some players that have a really good ear for the ball. Are you back with us, Jason?
Yeah, I'm trying again.
Right.
Clara, am I better now?
Yep, we could hear you.
Yeah, I would say their team, they have, like you said, they have a lot of young players. I think Clara Bloomer is going to be a pretty promising player. She actually got a double play in that game.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, she got a double play, a run scored. We found Clara was one of the kids, her and Caleb Wright, that are in the Archers, that we do a sports camp with the Light Out for the Blind St. Louis group every summer. And we did beepball last year, and they were the 2 kids we found out of that camp. And Claire's only 16, so I think she's going to be pretty talented. She actually played with us down. We played they were formerly known as the Twisters, the Lookouts down in Carthage, but she actually played in that game with us, and she scored a run in that game too. So she's going to be a pretty sound player for them. Probably the cornerstone of that team. She
was playing as a partially sighted player, but she played until the league wouldn't let her anymore. She played in a softball league. I believe they're like the league was considered like an amateur league, and she helped lead her team to a couple championships. So she's got like a knack for playing a version of baseball or whatever, and a love for it. When she got too old to play in the amateurs, she wasn't I don't remember now. I'm sorry if it was because her sight wasn't good enough to play at the like faster level, or if like because of her sight they didn't let her play at the higher level. It's something I'll be writing about in an article I'm writing about the Sirens for the public relations department. So you'll be able to learn more about it then. But she already has a love like for swinging a bat and knocking a ball around trying to score runs. So she's like the perfect young player for them to have pulled in to start this project, I think.
Also she's pretty handy too. She built I think her and her grandmother, she helps out a bit. She built her own form of a base, and she was trying to get down to run a 6-second base by building her own base or something like that. And I know they had those little air conditioning coolers. She built one of those herself too. I'm like, man, so she might be able to help out the league with equipment too eventually.
Right. She's gonna be a lifer in this sport. She's too valuable. She can do things on and off the field. No, that's really cool. It's creative. I knew that she, Cassandra McDaniel, their general manager, had told me going back, I guess they were at the Indy tournament, the Bonanza, and just there kind of, spreading the word about their team, getting some practice in. They have a couple of young players along with Clara, Corey, and Caitlin, who live in Indiana, so gave them a chance to practice with them. But Cassandra told me how, as Clara was watching the games during the Bonanza, she was timing the players and getting locked in on how fast she had to be if she wanted to score runs in this league. So I knew she was already focused on, becoming a good base runner. I had no idea that they went to that extent working on it. That's very cool.
She's a hard worker, and I think that's what you like to see, new generation getting involved into the game, whether it's a volunteer, whether it's a player, and it's good to see that they'll have some kind of those building blocks going forward.
Absolutely. All right, we've got 2 tournaments to run through. Let's run them down. I'm gonna go through the Gateway tournament first, since that's what we've been talking about. Excuse me. The first round of games in the morning, we had the Indy Thunder beat the Atlanta Chaos 12-5. I believe that was actually 12-0 after 3 innings. So that game was a run rule game. The Blackhawks beat the Lookouts from Oklahoma 12-4. I guess that was the Lookouts' first official game. They've played in quite a few scrimmages at this point, but that was their first official game. We had the Blackhawks' old pitcher going against their new pitcher, and their new pitcher won. Molly beat Tim. That's the headline. Molly beat Tim. The Blackhawks beat the Lookouts 12-4. Edge over the Comets 13-8, revenging earlier loss. I missed a game. Gateway Archers. How did I miss that team, Jason? You wouldn't let me go very far. Man, they turned it on against the Houston Hurricanes, scoring 23-9. So we finally got to see Johnny Walker and that Archer offense get kicking.
Yeah, they had me a little nervous at first. Even though I was in the screen, and being unbiased, they had me sitting there ready to. I'm like, DB, you probably got this. I had to go talk to a few guys, see what's going on, because they got out the gate pretty slow. But
yeah,
have a 13-run inning, and kind of move on from there.
You bringing that up reminds me that, like Seth, actually, I had more trouble this weekend finding streams than I normally do. I spent a lot of time looking for them. Usually I get notifications popping up saying when teams and stuff have gone live, but I wasn't getting that as much. So I wasn't on that game yet, and I heard the score was like 5-4, and I went looking for it. By the time I found it, it was like 15-5 or 15-4 or something. So I missed them. I knew they got off to the slow start. I missed the whole show for the most part, but that was a good game for them. Go on to the second round.
Game got everybody going.
Yeah. I skipped over the second round. So we got the Chicago Comets. What? I got it backward. I have it written backwards, so I wasn't catching it the way I normally write it. The Thunder beat the Comets 17-12. The Edge over the Atlanta Chaos 19-6. Obviously, the Indy Edge got their offense going. Speaking of offenses kicking into gear. Blackhawks 15-2 over the Hurricanes, and the Archers beat the Oklahoma Lookouts 13-1. I don't think that was a run rule. That game wasn't a run rule, was it? Or do you know?
Yeah, it was a run rule.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Yeah, it was 13-0 after 3, so it was it was a run rule.
Okay. I didn't tune into that particular game. All right, going to the third round, and like Jason had mentioned, these games were supposed to be played on Saturday. They got rained out on Saturday, so rather than just having the placement games and the championship game on Sunday morning, they had to squeeze in everything. They started at around 7:15, 7:30 in the morning. They finished the games playing just 4 innings and 0 balls and 3 strikes. So the score, keep that in mind when hearing the scores. The Indy Edge beat the Thunder 12-11. That's a game that you called, Jason. I didn't catch that game till later. Do you have any thoughts on that game?
I mean, it was a pretty tight game. The game ended in a walk-off by Aaron C., who actually started off as the designated fielder. He was not batting, and I think Steve Michael said he asked him for one that game, kind of Kirk Gibson-esque, and he gave it to him. Gave him the walk-off hit that game. So originally the Thunder were up, I think, by 4 going into the bottom of the 5th.
So what, did Aaron C. go into the tournament injured, or did he get banged up on Saturday? Do you know?
As I recall, I think he came in with an injury from what I heard. I think he came in a little banged up. Still felt like he could play, but I think he was a DF originally starting that game because me and DB, when we were reading the lineup, and, usually he's one of their DHs. We look down, I'm like, I think I got that right. I know I see him out in the field. I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's a DF.
And I remember when he came up, I was tuned in by then that he was, the conversation of him being made into a full-time player. But it didn't, I was just waiting for the at-bat. I didn't really register the fact that Aaron C. was the designated fielder. I'm a lifelong Dodger fan, so if you're going to bring up Kirk Gibson, Aaron C. better ran that base on one leg. That's all I'm saying. For you to bring up Kirk Gibson, he better ran that on one leg.
Yeah,
I hope my man Aaron C. is good.
Yeah, I think he's good. I think he played, got through that, but he got the one hit that he needed to get that tournament.
Right. That put them in the title game. The Gateway Archers come from behind to beat the Blackhawks 5-4 in another close game. That put the Gateway Archers in the championship game to play the Edge because they're in the other side of the bracket. The Chicago Comets beat the Chaos 11-2. Moving them up to the fifth place game.
Fifth place game.
Yeah. And the Hurricanes beat the Lookouts 5-4. No, the Lookouts won that game 5-4. So Oklahoma picking up their first win. Sorry, I said that wrong. Congratulations to them. Go ahead, Jason.
It's always good to get that first win before the World Series. So definitely congrats out to them.
Yeah. No, I agree. Just to have that feeling, you know what I mean?
Have the Hurricanes got a win yet? Or were they there last year? Last year.
They were there last year. They actually finished surprisingly well. I think they ended up like 11th or something. Surprising to me.
Yeah, I think they finished 11th last year.
Yeah.
I shouldn't bring it up. They finished ahead of us, so we remember all the teams in that path. So we remember.
Yeah, I totally forgot that I had a big joke for the beginning of the show. Don't know how well received it would have been, but I was going to say how Jason Frazier's not here as a member of the Archers after they finished 13th. He was fired as the Archers coach. So he's just here as a MindsEye CEO and president.
I relieved myself of my GM duties, after that. But I am still there practicing. So the people still are like, thought you were taking a step back from all the Archers. It's my wife glares at me is when I said that. Yeah, that was a lie. They would tell you. So but
actually, something that I've enjoyed getting to know about you and your wife is you guys just seem to both be all in for this sport. So I love families coming into our sport. All right, let's go ahead.
I think we're even our daughter was a base flipper, our base operator this week. So everybody's in. Once the 6-year-old can do a job, he'll do something too.
If he was the son of a blind parent, he'd already be doing jobs, like it or not, ready or not. Gotta start them early. All right, so our championship game, Indy Edge beat the Archers 16-5. What happened to your Archers in that one, Jason?
I mean, the Edge are just, how those guys are. They're a great team. You have a nucleus of 3 guys who have been a part of the last 6 championship in the league, added with Nick Mulhern and Justin Holland. Yeah. And I think defensively, there's just balls that were hit that they were just good balls. I was like, if my team could make plays on that one, then we would have changed the game. But you have to make spectacular plays against that team, and you got to keep over them offensively. Yeah. I think the first 2 innings for the Archers, they went, scoreless. I think 3 up, 3 down, and you got to at least score 3 or 4 runs an inning to keep up with that team, and that wasn't done.
Yeah. I still thought it was a good run for the Archers to get there. I thought this weekend is the best we've seen the Archers play, considering the expectation, really, the last 2 years. I think this is the best we've seen the Archers play in a while. This past weekend.
And I would say, Neil, in a good way, you helped out with that, because one thing that you said after Indy was the Archers should look at a different defense. And I think we did a different defensive alignment after. So I listened to the podcast, and that defensive alignment that they played most of the part this weekend, I think it paid dividends for them on the defensive side of the ball. So you actually saw the potential with, an Ethan Johnston, a Kyle Bora, Mark Morris, and Richie Crussell, 4 guys who are all great 2-way players. in a different scheme. And I think it really helped out this.
Well, cool. I don't remember what I said, and usually I get in trouble for what I say. So good for me.
Yeah.
On that note, though, Seth and I have always been defensive minded. We come from a defensive minded background with the dogs. Remind me when we're done with all the scores here, Seth. I got something about the dogs. A point I want to make. But when I look at your team as somebody who's defensive minded and more of a coaching age now, like I look at the pieces you have, and I can't lie. For the last year, I've spent a lot of time imagining what I would do if I had those pieces, like how I would play them, where I would play them, because I like the pieces you have on defense. Once you added Mark Morris, I was like, oh man, if I had that team, I'd do this. But no, I go ahead.
I mean, it's almost like adding Mark Morris, almost adding like a shutdown corner. It's almost adding like your football quote of adding the Deion Sanders. You know, you can put him anywhere in the field, and he can almost shut down that side or make it real difficult for the teams to score. And that's kind of what we were missing from that, either having someone to go, a versatile defender to go deep, go in the middle, go up front, and he kind of provided that for us. So we match up a lot better against some teams that we didn't probably do so in the last couple of years.
My analogy, I thought of it as more of a basketball standpoint. I know you're a basketball fan too, and like versatility has become more important in the NBA than it ever has been. You know, wings that could guard 3-4 positions, and that's what I look like. Not just Mark Morris, but players like Mark Morris. Like he's somebody you can move around on a defense and feel confident he's going to hold his ground.
100%.
All right, let's get through the other games. In our third place game, Aston Blackhawks beat the Indy Thunder 11-10. That was a game that the Hawks were behind 9-1. And Molly and that offense fought their way back, tied it up at 9 by the end of the 6th inning, played a 7th inning, and our man Day Sterling came through with the walk-off. That was a very impressive win for the Hawks, and a big win. Like we were just talking about, like teams needing to get that win, Jason, like the Lookouts getting a win as a team. Molly is in her first year as a full-time pitcher. And I feel like pitchers kind of need to get a signature win, you know, to feel like they're like in that club. And I look at that. I think Molly just got her first signature win.
Yeah, coming back on the defense like the Thunder, that's pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, shout out to Molly, but also, you know, Dave Sterling with he had the defensive MVP of the tournament, but also having a big offensive moment there too. He's been pretty good at the plate this whole season. Every time I've seen him as well.
Very nice. All right, yeah, I'm gonna run down all the All-Star stuff here in a second. The fifth place game, the the Comets gave the Lookouts a little eye opener, beating them 18-2, giving the Comets fifth place in the tournament. And the Houston Hurricanes got their first win. You're asking about, Seth, at least for this year, I believe. No, they beat the Lookouts. That was an exhibition game. This is their first win of the tournament, beating the Atlanta Chaos 8-5. And that wrapped up the tournament, running down the all-tournament teams, the offensive all-tournament. Gerald Dykes, 10 for 14, your MVP, 714 average. Cody Jeffries, number 2. Chris Dunleavy, number 3. If you're not paying attention, 3 straight Thunder players. Eric Rodriguez had the 4th best average. Nick Mulheron, the 5th. And Justin Holland, the 6th. So 1st, 2nd, and 3rd on the all-tournament team go to the Thunder. 4th, 5th, and 6th go to the Indy Edge. Good to see the Edge back up and popping on offense. The defensive all-tournament team, for a 2nd tournament in a row, Darius Sterling is the defensive MVP. Love seeing how well that young man's playing for the Hawks. Eric Rodriguez with 21 putouts was number 2. I think Darius had 24. Ikram, I'm going to try to say his name right. Ikramola. Ikramola? Do you know if that's anywhere close to right?
Just call him Icky. Or
Yeah, I know.
That's where we.
That's all anybody calls him is Icky. And I was like, I gotta give this man respect. He's been so big the last 2 years. And we're still, that's who we need to get on the show, man, because this dude's been playing really well the last 2 years. And everybody just calls him Icky because I can't say his name. So shout out to Icky. You had another good tournament. Kyle Bora from your Archers with 13 putouts made the defensive all-tournament team. Ethan Johnston, 13, matched him. 13 from Nick Mulherron also to round out the defensive all-tournament team. So shout out to everybody. Good tournament, Jason. Good tournament.
Yeah. It's like I enjoyed, hosting, and I know a lot of people from the area who maybe witnessed beepball for the first time. The volunteers or sponsors that came out really take a liking to the sport as well. So that's also what you want to see. So I appreciate all the teams putting on such a good show for everyone to, draw that interest and build for the sport of beep baseball.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's jump through these Beast of the East scores. Again, the Beast of the East is a tournament that takes place over 2 weekends. So this was the first leg. It was played in Pennsylvania. The next leg will be the weekend of July 15th, and that will be played in Massachusetts, I believe in the Boston area, someplace. But for this first leg, they're morning games. The Philly Fire beat the Boston Renegades 20-12. That was, I think, the marquee game of this tournament. The Fire jumped out to a 14-6 lead, and it looked like they were going to pull away. They looked really good. But then here came Boston fighting back. They made it a 14-12 game, I think, by the end of the fourth inning, if I remember right. But they held off Boston from that point on and put up 8 more runs, winning 20-12. I know you reached out to me at one point, Seth, asking for a recommendation on a stream, and I told you to check it out.
Yeah, I checked it out, and then the stream died like 2 minutes after I jumped on, but he was good.
I was just going to bring that up, man.
That is what, like, man, if
that's what we need.
If you could do it on every stream, you could engage people, or and it might take a little cash to secure that. But go ahead. But I thought it was really
I meant
good.
to reach out to John Marges before the show and ask him who was doing the stream, because I don't know who it was. I shouldn't speculate like this, but I'm not smart enough not to. I think it's Dakota Hogwood's boyfriend, but that's a guess. So I should have left it alone. Whoever it is. The play-by-play was fantastic. There was never any lull. He never just sat there not saying anything for 2-3 minutes at a time. If there was a long timeout, he told you what was going on. He always knew the score, how many outs in the inning. You know what I mean? It's like, and what I also love, and this ties into, I told you to remind me there's something I want to bring up about the Dogs. He never talks zones. Left field, right field, center field, short left, deep right. He never tried to talk zones. And I've been pushing for this for quite a while, because we're not trying to draw in just people who played. And even though you and I played, we don't know what zone system each team's using. You know what I mean? I don't know. And it doesn't even make sense when somebody's like, oh, that ball went to where our team would call a right to. It's like, who cares what your team would call it? Call it what it is, please. And I realize sometimes, I thought about it a lot this weekend. Sometimes we got like spotters and pitchers doing the play-by-play. And that's the way they think, because that's, you know what I mean? We did think like that when we're on the field. So I guess I'm lightening up on that a little bit. But, man, I just want – I'm a veteran beepball player. I just want left field, right field, deep, short. Anyway, and whoever this cat was for the Philadelphia Fire, his play-by-play was spectacular. So shout out there. But before I forget again, something I heard referred to when it comes to zoning this weekend was calling 6 up the middle the Texas way of spotting, and 1 up the middle the Midwest way of spotting. Does any part of that offend you? hearing one up the middle's a Midwest way of spotting. And I hope you remember this in your future streams, Jason. Nobody called one up the middle ever before the East Bay Blaze back in 1992. When
I was going to say, my problem would be the Midwest.
Yeah, nobody from the Midwest did it until like 25 years later. Nobody.
So you got to credit the East. You're talking about the East Coast is the one who says the East Coast?
East Bay from
San
Francisco.
Oh, so you're still what? So yeah,
California, baby. Okay. It's a California thing because East Bay Blaze did it first, and Seth and I were members of the Blaze, and we carried it to the Dogs after that, and that's the way the Dogs called it. Back when Seth and I started playing, Jason, teams didn't have two spotters. Nope. Teams had one spotter. It was either 1 through 6 all the way across the field, or it was 1 through 5 all the way across the field.
Right.
So teams didn't have two spotters, but the Blaze weren't the first team to have two spotters, but they absolutely were the first team to ever call it one up the middle. And then it was the Dogs. I think the first team that really went to two spotting and used 6 up the middle were the Wichita Sonics in the 90s. I don't know if I'm correct about that, but the 6 up the middle is more of a Midwest thing. But make no mistake, 1 up the middle is California. You guys disrespect the Dogs all you want because we've had a lifetime of the Dogs being disrespected for whatever reason. You know, people hate the great.
Those are Cali zones. We got to.
That is a Cali zoning system. Period. That might be the title of the show.
Why do you think teams don't do? Why do you think more teams don't do one spotter technique anymore?
Because they realize it's not as good. Like we all realize it. You know, when Seth and I got in, we're barely 10 years into the league. You know. And then once you get 2 spotters in, you got somebody on each side. You could break it up into more zones,
smaller zones, more precise calling. That's all it is. It's more precise. And you know, back when it was just one zone or one spotter, you know, the theory behind defense was a little different. Just listen to the spotter and run to where he's calling or she's calling. You know, once it kind of got shifted back more towards a player-centric defense, you got, you know, you could start breaking up those zones into smaller chunks and then allowing players just to get there on an easier level. So
I'm over trying to think now. I'm trying to think if there's anybody that uses one zone or one spotter. I feel like there's someone out there. I remember seeing it, but I can't remember who it is now.
It's probably only at this point because they don't have enough. Like
exactly.
You know, if you don't have enough, but like they say 6 up the middle is like a Texas thing. Fort Worth never used 2 spotters in the 90s. The Blackhawks didn't use 2 spotters in the 90s. Glenn Hopkins was their only spotter all the way through their championship run.
You know, the only thing I would say is I brought that to the Heat. I mean, the Heat had 1 spotter before I got there.
Right.
I switched them to 2 spotters, and I had it like we did. John Parker came in years ago and flipped it.
But again, remember, John comes from the Wichita Sonics, who did 6 up the middle. And also you guys had Janet Leonard, who came from the Wichita Sonics, who liked 6 up the middle. So you were outnumbered. I was gonna grab some water, but man, let's run down the rest of these beasts.
Power through it. It's late, man. You know, we got
all right. Sorry, but you know, that's a California thing. Period.
Yeah, period.
All right. Make sure we copyright that.
The other morning game in the Beast of the East had the Titans beating the Boston Strong, one of our new teams. They're not going to be at the World Series this year, but they are participating in the Beast of the East. New Jersey Titans beat them 11-1. I don't have official confirmation, but I believe that's correct. In the second round game, the Renegades beat the Boston Strong 13-1. And the Titans beat the Long Island Bombers 12-3. There was supposed to be a third round, I think, just between Long Island and the Philly Fire, but I'm not sure that game was played. I read somewhere, not from Philadelphia, but from the Renegades, that there was some kind of a problem with like a dual booking. So if there was a third game, I don't know what it was, the score was. So that's all I got. That tournament will be finished coming up in 2 weeks. So be looking for all of that. That is all I have, fellas. I'm sure your family is sick of us, Jason, so we will wrap this up. But to first Jason, and then, because he's our guest, and then Seth, do you guys have anything before we close up?
Just want to say thank you guys for having me on. Always great talking to you. Like I said, I enjoy just being a part of the beatball community as a whole, and you guys are part of that, so always pleasure to be a guest on the show.
Anytime. We like having you. Most of the archers are always fun. That's a shout out, Chad Dillon.
I was gonna say, how'd you guys do on? Because you guys did picks. Did he beat you again this week, or did you get him this time?
I think we picked all the same. Chad and I only picked the games from the Beast of the East, and I think we picked the same games. I don't think we had any different picks. Johnny Margis and I did the picks for the Gateway tournament, and I think our only different pick, maybe we had to, no, I was the Thunder Indy game. We didn't pick any of the Sunday games. We were just like picking first, second, and third round. But he had the Thunder beating the Edge, and I had the Edge beating the Thunder. I think we were different.
Well, I think you also picked us beating Austin, and he picked Austin beating us.
Oh, you know what? You're right. Yep, you're right. So I got him on 2 games. And I would have got him on the tiebreaker if we had to go to it.
I remember all this stuff, Neil. It sinks in. I don't forget anything.
all the teams do, man. I've literally reached the point that I think Richie brought me on his stupid show and did these picks just to sabotage my great reputation, because he made me pick upsets, and every upset I picked pissed somebody off. And they weren't even right most of the time. And people sending me private messages saying stuff that I'm scratching my head like, I don't know what they mean. And it's like, oh yeah, my bad. So Richie's just trying to ruin my reputation.
I don't envy that job, so I stay out of the picking and the predictions lane, so focus on with the task at hand. So.
Set Dog, you got anything before we check out? Oh my God, it just hit me. I don't think I ever hit the record button. Oh yeah, I did. No, I don't think I did. I don't think I ever hit the record button. Let me check it. I'm not even on Zoom. Oh man. I mean, I'm gonna get it either way, but I don't think I hit the record button. We will find out, I guess.
You did, because they asked me a little thing. Do you want to leave the meeting? The recording started in progress.
I thought that was just because we did the stream, though.
Oh, I know. I
hope
got one of those notifications.
I hope you're right. I actually was going to try to turn it off to see if I was right, which would have been idiotic. Septar, do you have anything else?
No, we just went live right now to answer your question. We went live 54 minutes ago, so you're good, Neil.
No, I knew we went live. I just don't know if I recorded it. And because we're live, I can get the recording or whatever, but I like to do it record it on Zoom, because then it right away gives me an audio file for the podcast. So now it will be more difficult for me to get that file. Nobody's fault other than my own.
I'll just point out, nobody will care outside of me. But
I will care. It's more inconvenient for me.
No. 160 years ago today, tickets charged. Battle of Gettysburg. I thought of that when Jason was saying he was taking a Southern tour. I was like, hey, man. It's Gettysburg weekend this weekend, man. Be careful, you know.
Oh, and Neil, so if I could throw one more quick shout out here too.
Sure.
Of important one. I want to throw a shout out to Fonzie. I know you guys were talking about his great pitching last week, but also we wouldn't have been able to have that tournament this weekend if Fonzie didn't come through with making Fonzie ball. So I got to send him a special shout out to this for that. So thanks to Fonzie.
Absolutely. Very cool. Very cool. We love us some Fonzie around here. He, I meant to mention earlier, Seth, he was the pitcher for the scrimmage game with the team they called the Alliance and the Sirens.
Oh.
Isn't that correct? He was the pitcher?
Yeah, he was a pitcher. He did a lot this weekend. Baseball,
worked as an umpire.
Was an umpire. Yeah, he was running down that line though. I mean, if Fonzie doesn't want to pitch, I know another job for him around the league. He was hustling, making calls. So yeah, he did a little bit of everything this weekend.
Fonzie's good peeps. Set Dog, you got anything before we check out?
Nope. He's done.
Right. Well, I'm because I'm worried I didn't record on Zoom. I'm going to end the live stream right here to make things easier. So, anybody and everybody check this out. Thank you very much. We will be back next weekend with something. Everybody be well until then.